Today, Democratic presidential candidate Senator Amy Klobuchar tweeted, "This is not what great democracies do. Vociferous disagreement on issues, yes. Denying congressional members entry, no. As for the president's message that allowing the congresswomen to visit Israel would be a sign of weakness, exporting intolerance is the true sign of weakness." Joining our discussion now from Little Rock, Arkansas, is Senator Amy Klobuchar from the great state of Minnesota and a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. She's a 2020 presidential candidate. Senator Klobuchar, I'd like to hear more of your reaction to this thing we've never seen in our history before. The president urging a foreign country, this case Israel, to ban two members of Congress from entering, and Israel banned them.
I could not believe this today. Just when you suspend belief and you think things can't get worse, this happened. And that is because I have always seen Israel as our beacon of democracy in the Mideast. And like your previous guest, I think that is so important for those of us that support Israel. And I cannot believe this happened. I don't agree with everything these two congresswomen have said, and I have made that very clear, as have others. But it is a much bigger step to suddenly say you are not going to allow these elected members of Congress to visit your country. And the fact that the prime minister did it immediately after our president sent out his hateful tweet and then just reacted, I don't see this as a sign of strength on either of their parts. And as far as President Trump, you know, I still remember when John McCain was banned by Vladimir Putin to go to Russia. That happened. Or Senator Mary Landrieu of Louisiana. That happened. And so why he would encourage an ally, a friend in Israel to do the same is just beyond belief. And as I said earlier this afternoon, it is not a sign of strength. Exporting intolerance, that is a sign of weakness. And our country is so much better than that. Democracy thrives on a vigorous discussion of the issues. And you can have big disagreement, but you don't ban people from going to another nation.
I want to get to a presidential campaign issue that has been low volume up to now, but as the global economy starts to stagger, including because for reasons beyond just the Trump tariffs, but very much including the Trump tariffs. I want to listen to something that President Trump said today about the Trump tariffs. And I don't normally show video of Donald Trump on this program because it's such a waste of time, but I'm doing it now.
Special treat because I'm on.
Well, I'm doing it just for you as a presidential debate rehearsal, because there will come a time when one of you Democrats is on the stage with this person listening to these things in the presidential debate. So let's start with what President Trump said.
I look forward to it.
And hear your response to that. We'll begin with what the president said about tariffs today.
The tariffs, we've taken in close to $60 billion in tariff money, and the consumer has not paid for them. Now, at some point, they may have to pay something, but they understand that. And who really understands that is our great farmer. The farmers of this country really understand it.
Senator Klobuchar, your 60-second response. Actually, take as many seconds as you want.
Thank you. I guess he has not talked to the farmers that I have spoken with in my own state and in Iowa and here in Arkansas, where they have a lot of soybean farmers. What's happened is he is basically destroying their way of life. Yeah, there's some money that comes over from the Department of Agriculture. But as one farmer told me when he closed the door sobbing, he said, "Look, I'll take the handout, but it's not what I want. This farm has been in my family for generations, and I want to give it to my kids." And what he has done, instead of going back to the negotiating table, he has been treating those farmers and a lot of workers in the country like poker chips at one of his bankrupt casinos. And I was thinking about this when I was at the Clinton Library today in Little Rock. And you remember when James Carville said, it's the economy, stupid. Remember back then? Mm-hmm. Well, what this president is doing stupid things to our economy, an economy that he inherited where workers and businesses had gotten us out of that rut and put us in a stronger place. And instead of dealing with issues facing us like a workforce and immigration reform and doing something when it comes to the debt, what is he doing? He's making it harder and harder and harder. And so, no, that is not what I'm hearing from the farmers. And I know a bunch of them voted for him, but I know that they're stepping back and think, has this really been better for me? And how is this working for our rural communities? And that is why I think it's important that you have a leader of a ticket that is willing to go, like I have today, to places not just where it's comfortable, but where it's uncomfortable, to make sure that we know that we can win in red states. We can win in red states like we won the governorship of Kansas, like we turned over Wisconsin, which was a purple state. We can do this, but only if we meet people where they are.
Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.